Well, hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Workforce Insights, Lehigh Carbon Community College's new vodcast designed to keep you ahead of the curve in leadership and workforce development. I'm Wendy Beltzner with LCC's Center for Workforce Development, and I'll be your host for this series where each month we'll bring you expert perspectives and spotlight innovative training opportunities, all to help your teams and your organizations thrive. For our premiere episode, I'm so excited to introduce you to someone who has been both a mentor and an inspiration to me, Craig Casper with Market Smart 365 in the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton area. Craig has over 35 years of leadership experience, having worked with organizations ranging from small startups to Fortune 200s. He's a senior executive, an entrepreneur, trainer, and consultant who has guided countless leaders and teams to success. Now, before we dive into our conversation, though, I want to take a moment to share a little bit about my leadership journey and how Craig played such an important role in it. You see, early in my career at one of the world's largest staffing services, Craig was actually my area manager. He saw something in me that I didn't see myself and promoted me through several levels of leadership, ultimately giving me the opportunity to lead my own office. And under his guidance, I learned what it meant to inspire a team, build trust, and drive real performing results. With the help of an incredible team, that office went on to become one of the best performing in the area. You know, in the world of leadership and learning and development, sometimes leadership skills are often referred to as these soft skills. However, in reality, there's nothing soft about them. Great leadership equals performance, and performance always lands on the bottom line. Well, since those days, I've spent over 30 years in training and curriculum development, working with companies all across industries in our region. I've also been an entrepreneur, creating and operating businesses that have challenged me to lead with creativity, vision, and always a commitment to developing others. Now it feels like a full circle moment to collaborate with Craig again, this time as colleagues on LCC's Leadership Success Series. The series is a comprehensive training program that develops leaders at 4 different levels, from first-time supervisors to senior executives. Through personal assessments, interactive simulations, and coaching, it builds the skills and confidence that are required to lead others effectively. And each level also earns an LCC leadership certificate as well as a digital badge to showcase a learner's achievement. So Craig, welcome and thank you for being here as our very first guest. Are you ready for a few questions for me today?
I think I am, Wendy. Thank you for the introduction. And I'm really excited and honored to be with you here today.
Great. Well, you've worked with leaders in organizations of all sizes. So this is a tough question, but what do you think is the single most important skill a leader needs to be successful in today's workplace?
Wow, you're starting off with a bomb. That's I got to pick one.
Just one.
Well, with that, it might be necessary just to take a quick peek back. When I started my career as a young man, I had was in a company and a boss that was very good to me, and I had no complaints about the relationship. But it was a boss that really was not that way with everyone, and could be pretty difficult with certain people. There seemed to be favorites. There seemed to be situations where employees would get ridiculed and embarrassed and punished in certain ways.
Oh.
And while my relationship and things were good, I was very bothered by the behavior and would think there's got to be a better way. Well, I was with that company for almost 5 years, and I had to make a change. And what I did is I went out and I bought a franchise of an international training and development company, and with the quest to really pursue leadership and all types of training. We did leadership training, communication, we did sales management, a host of things. And I did that for 5 years. And then I decided that I really wanted to go back into the quote world of work and implement things as opposed to stay on the podium, if you will. And so that's a little bit about my journey. And then through the rest of my career, my focus was working in organizations, trying to implement and develop teams based on what I had learned. And so to answer your question, finally, what is the most important skill? I would say skill area. I would say emotional intelligence, and or EQ as it's termed today. We all know
Yes.
about IQ and our ability to learn and our capacity from an intellectual standpoint. And most people who are hearing probably understand a bit about emotional intelligence, or EQ, that's called. And the reason I say that is it really encompasses some dimensions that um, are important for connecting with people. And self-awareness is the first, is knowing ourselves, and then self-management, being able to master ourselves, understanding our emotions, our weaknesses, and our strengths, but then also managing those. And then the other side of the equation, focusing on others, is that social awareness. Do we recognize the emotions in others? And can we relate to them with empathy? And then we have relationship management. And that's bringing it all together and being able to develop relationships based on being able to connect with people, understand where they're coming from, and help them through conflict, dealing with stressful situations and different things. And so the reason I bring those up, because they really point to a number of other capacities that are important for a leader. And when you do surveys about, tell us about the greatest leader or greatest coach you've had, you hear things like patience, understanding, approachable, fair-minded, good communicator, um, sets the bar high, but supports me and encourages me. And all of those elements or more are part of that emotional intelligence equation, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I would pick that, even though it does encompass more, and encourage people to really pursue along those lines, because I think it's the single most area that can impact performance of other individuals, because the way that we feel about our relationship with our boss or the company that we're working for directly impacts how we perform. And so it's not touchy-feely, so to speak. It's like you brought out, more of a hard skill, really, that directly impacts performance, and how well they perform. So sorry for the long answer on that one, but that
No.
really that would be one thing that I would capture.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so critical. And you hit the nail right on the head. In all of the years that I've done training, that surfaces, people always remember how their leaders made them feel, not necessarily what they said or what they did, but how they made them feel. So to have that skill, I would agree, it goes to the top of the list. All right. Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, when I think back to us working together, I clearly remember the way you led. And you were exactly all of those things. You taught me how to inspire others and to build strong, cohesive teams. I'm just curious, what philosophies or habits have guided you in developing high performing teams throughout your career?
Yeah, good question. I think first of all, I feel like I was fortunate to get a picture of what my role was as a leader early on in my career, based on the path that I followed. And I think that was the number one thing that I realized my job, whatever company I was working in, whatever industry it was, whatever level I was at, I didn't describe my job as, oh, I'm the VP of this. Um, my job was really focused on developing the full potential of the team. That's what I saw my job as wherever I worked. And so that philosophy um, was just kind of born in me from the process I went through. And then I would say, with that, when you come into an environment and you're taking on some responsibility and a team, you're assessing the team, and more importantly, you're finding out what the needs are. And I
Mhm.
think going through a process of really um, doing an analysis in terms of like where the team is, what do they like, what do they think could change, what's good that you want to keep going, at an individual level and then even an organizational level, all in for purpose of building a strategy that would be participative, inclusive, and taking information and putting together a strategy that people have contributed to where they can buy in and feel part of something, because they're making it happen and they get the credit for what they're doing. I that was my passion in work. And so I think those two things, the last one would be clear expectations. I think the bar should be set high. We should all be stretched to perform and be our best. But with that bar set high, that there's support, that we really, the training, the development, and the balanced feedback and the expectations of the follower and the leader clearly laid out, and that we're accountable to those things, that we commit to those things. I think those three areas are the cornerstones of how I've always approached my work.
Oh, and again, I couldn't agree more. Knowing your people, right? Understanding what motivates them, what stresses them, where are their strengths, where are their weaknesses, and then purposefully, as you said, strategically placing them in roles where they can succeed. It's a win-win. Well, that explains a lot. All right. Well, so we're both teaching, and you mentioned a lot of these topics that you're covering are included in our leadership series. So we're both teaching this leadership success series. You're going to be leading the corporate open enrollment sessions in Tamaqua at our Morgan Center, and I'll be at our main campus in Schnecksville. I'm super excited about this program. I cannot wait for folks to experience it. What excites you the most about it, and how do you see it impacting participants, specifically who are at different stages in their leadership journey?
Well, one of the things I'm most excited about certainly is to be able to work with you again, and go through this process. You've created this leadership success series, and benefit from your mastery both in curriculum development and delivery over the past many years. And to your point about the way that you've constructed this and put the series together, that no matter where you are, no matter how long you've been in leadership,
Right.
we're all still growing. We've never learned it all. In fact, some of us get put in positions of responsibility, and sometimes the training isn't there concurrent with the timing of taking on more. And so you've seen folks that have been in it for a few years, and they'll come to one of the courses and they really can pick up a ton of things because they didn't have maybe the opportunity to pair it with the timing. And so the way that you've put this together, no matter where somebody is, whether they're starting out or they've been there a while, they can look at the content that is offered in these four levels, and do something that meets their needs. And maybe you can complement that with things that you have to say about it. But that's my view of this, is that the way it is put together gives flexibility, and meets folks where they are and for what they need.
Exactly that. And it's almost our tagline for the Workforce Insights podcast that we're doing. It's, leadership excellence, every leader at every level. And that really does sum up all of the offerings that we have, not just the success series, but all of the additional leadership courses that we provide. It's being able to find tools that are relevant and meaningful for participants as they engage in our training. And I think we've got it. I think we have it covered from, as you said, the very first entry into the role into somebody who's been there for years. So I can't wait to get it started. All right. Well, you've also experienced leadership from multiple angles, corporate executive, entrepreneur, consultant. How have all of those experiences shaped the way you approach training and development? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah, good question. I guess I'd have to say that primarily real world experience, and that's typically our best teacher. Sometimes it's very well paired with classroom teaching, concurrent with what your challenges are. But I think the different things that I've been involved in and done with real world experience, and when you think about the content that we cover and being able to relate, being in that position, having done it, having been challenged with it, having worked with others who are working through it, are very helpful. And I approach every new group that comes in brings new opportunities to uncover. And I just try to create a climate of participation and set that as an expectation, and that they're sharing and of successes and challenges with the participants in the group. And we do really emphasize that. One of the things I have learned in doing this for many years is that when you get the surveys done at the end of the workshops, one of the things that always comes to the top is, what did you gain most, or what did you enjoy most about the process? And you hear so many times it was just talking with peers and what their challenges are and how they're handling things, and the successes that they've had and what has led to those. Because in these series, we really try to focus on a lot of interaction, a lot of assessments that folks can do to learn, and then they can kind of debrief. And so there's a tremendous amount of hands-on and interaction with the participants. And I think we become really just a facilitator of the process. While there are teaching moments, it's really about, giving them ownership, and then letting it go where the content is taking it to get the most value out of the experience.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's funny because when you're in this business, you've studied for years and you know models and theories and philosophies. And while that's all fantastic to build curriculum upon, when the rubber hits the road and the takeaways are most meaningful from workshops, it's always the interaction. So to bring real life experiences, I think it's just an incredible advantage. And that is something that we're really proud of. So we're able to deliver that. Finally, I'm going to ask your last question. Out of everything that you've experienced in your career, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to a new supervisor who's stepping into a leadership role for the very first time?
Oh boy, I think the biggest thing, and perhaps the biggest challenge for anybody going into a change where they have been a performer, an individual contributor, and then kind of in a leadership role, a supervisor, a manager, or a director of some sort, there's a tendency to, as you were promoted mostly because you were a good doer, a good performer. And you're getting recognized for that. And but the job is totally different. The encouragement is that you would need to recognize that your job just totally changed, because in order to be successful, you're not that expert performer. You can use that to help others, but if you focus too much on it and you focus on what they're doing and being in their business and over their shoulder, you get this micromanager syndrome that builds, and people resent it. They want to be empowered. They want to be encouraged and perform on their own. And so as an expert, can you back off a little bit and not expect perfection in everything, but understand that your role is not to be the best doer, but to be responsible to support the whole team. So your emphasis and your shift of priorities is totally different.
Right.
And unless you come into that and recognize that, and then realign your priorities as well as your schedule to spend time in those important things, communicating, leading, giving feedback, regrouping, meeting with them and building them, you're doomed to failure. And we've seen many go down a difficult road by not really understanding that, hey, my role is totally changed.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And I think that the other thing is really, in order to lead yourself, I've always believed, and this was one of the things when I got involved in leadership that I was taught, is that you need to be able to lead yourself. And so we think about leading others and all these things that leadership is. But unless you can lead yourself, which is by setting goals, committing to those things, and these series are a good example of that. When you come into one of these workshops, you're going to have a tremendous opportunity to go through some things where you identify areas where you want to improve. And so as you set goals and you commit to those things, you're leading yourself. If you can't fool people, if you don't do that in your own life, you're not going to be effective in leading them. And so, but that's the positive thing, because when you commit to things, I always think about this. It's people say knowledge is power, but really not so. Applied knowledge is power. So people come to a workshop and think, well, I'm going to get a lot of new information. I'm going to learn things. And we as facilitators understand we can't really teach anyone anything, but we can help them become aware. And when that awareness reaches a level where they're motivated to take action and it turns into different behavior, they can get different results. And so I always think we're not in the training business. We're in the behavior modification business. And
Absolutely.
if we can't encourage people to be motivated to change their behavior and do different things so they get different results, it's just not going to work. So that would be, those would be my final thoughts on that topic.
That's incredible. And that's a return on investment, right? Changed behavior is the best return on investment an organization can have. Well, Craig, thank you so much for sharing your insights and for continuing to inspire not only me, but countless of other leaders across industries. And for those of you who are watching, if you're ready to take your leadership to the next level, we'd love to have you join us for the Leadership Success Series. Corporate open enrollment classes begin in September. However, customized in-person or virtual training for individual organizations is available now. To learn more about the series or any of our other leadership courses, you can visit our website at lccc.edu. This is Workforce Insights, excellence for every leader at every level. Thank you for tuning in to our premiere episode, and we'll see you next time.